I want to start today's deep dive with a little experiment. I'm going to read you a short story.
Okay.
Well, it's really just a paragraph.
Yeah.
And I want you to close your eyes, clear your mind, and really just listen to the word. Then I want you to tell me, honest, how it makes you ready?
I'm ready to lay it on me.
Here we go. Quote, "The girl was scared of the wilderness, her heart pounding at every frightening, but suddenly her fear disappeared. She touched the ground and it felt like her new guardian." End quote.
Is that it?
That's it. That's the whole scene. Give me your visceral reaction.
Honestly, it's boring.
Boring.
Yeah, it evokes absolutely nothing. It feels flat. It reads like a police report or, a synopsis you'd read on the back of a DVD case. I know the girl's supposed to be scared because you literally use the word scared.
Right.
And I know she's supposed to feel safe because you use the word guardian, but I didn't feel a single thing. It's just information transfer. It's like data entry.
Exactly. It is terrible, right? It's the kind of writing that just makes your eyes glaze over. Totally.
You find yourself checking your phone or thinking about what you're going to have for lunch. But here is the twist, and this is where our mission today really begins. Yeah. That passage is a butchered, ruined version of a pivotal moment from a massive best-selling novel.
Let me guess. You took a masterpiece and just stripped away all the magic.
I took a scalpel to it. That was a telling version of a passage from Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owen.
And the reason it sounds so mechanical, so lifeless, is that it violates the single most famous and maybe the most misunderstood rule in the entire canon of creative.
Show, don't tell.
Show, don't tell. We hear it constantly. If you've ever taken a creative writing class or even just had a stern English teacher in high school, you've had this drilled into your head.
Oh, yeah.
But usually it's just barked as a command. Don't tell me he's angry, show me. But what does it actually mean mechanically? And more importantly, why does the human brain reject the telling version?
That's the key question. This isn't just about literary style or, following some arbitrary rule book. It's about psychology. It's about how the human brain processes information, how we build empathy, and how we decode the world around us. We're wired to reject summaries and just crave experience.
And we have a massive stack of research today to help us unpack this. We're going to be digging into insights from the quotidian writer Diane Callahan, who is just brilliant on this stuff.
She's fantastic.
We're looking at advice from heavy hitters like Chuck Palahniuk, the guy who wrote Fight Club. So he knows a thing or two about visceral, punch-you-in-the-gut writing.
For sure. We've also got Andrew Stanton from Pixar. And we're going all the way back to the 1920s with critics like Percy Lubbock.
So we're going to break down the mechanics of how to actually do this, how to move beyond the cliche of, clenched fists and teary eyes.
And I think most interestingly, we're going to mount a defense for telling because, as it turns out, sometimes you should tell.
Right. If you show everything, your book is going to be 10,000 pages long and completely unreadable.
Exactly.
So let's start with the definition. We need a baseline. What is the core distinction between showing and telling?
I think the best definition I've found comes from author K.M. Weil. Puts it incredibly simple. Showing dramatizes, telling summarizes.
Dramatization versus summarization. That's a really helpful way to think about it. The passage I read earlier summarized the girl's fear. It gave you the label scared, but it didn't give you the experience.
Think of it like a vacation photo versus a receipt for the plane ticket. The receipt tells me you went to Hawaii. It summarizes the transaction. It proves you were there.
Right. It's just data.
But a photo of you standing on a volcano with a Mai Dai, that shows me the experience. It dramatizes the event.
So our goal for this deep dive is to figure out how to stop handing the reader, start handing them photos.
Or even better, VR headset. We want them inside the scene, sweating on that volcano.
Okay, so let's look at the why first. Why do humans crave showing? Why does telling feel so passive and boring? To answer that, we actually have to look at specifically Pixar.
Andrew Stanton. He's the writer and director behind Finding Nemo and Wall-E. He gave a TED Talk a few years back that is just absolute gold for storytellers. He proposes something he calls the unifying theory of 2 plus 2.
Theory of 2 plus 2. Okay. Walk us through this, because I think this really explains that cognitive itch that showing scratches.
It's so simple, but so profound. Stanton argues that the audience actually wants to work for their meal. We don't want to just be spoon-fed information. We get bored if we're just passive recipients. His formula is, don't give the audience 4. Give them 2 plus 2 and let them make 4.
Okay. Let's apply that to the scared girl example from the intro. If I say, the girl was scared, I am just giving you 4.
Exactly. You've done the math. You've handed me the answer key.
Yeah.
My brain doesn't have to do anything. I just accept the data point. Girl, scared. It's efficient, sure, but it's totally unengaging. It's like someone solving a crossword puzzle for you.
But if I give you the 2 plus 2, if I describe, I don't know, the sweat on her palms, the shallow breathing, the way she flinches when a twig snaps.
Those are the variables. You're giving me the raw data.
Yeah.
My brain has to take those variables, the sweaty palms, the flinching, the shallow breath, and it has to calculate the sum. And the sum my brain arrives at is fear.
And here's the kicker. Because I calculated it, I own it. It becomes my realization, not just your statement.
Exactly. The IKEA effect of storytelling. We value the furniture we build ourselves more than the stuff we buy pre-assembled.
I love that.
When the reader puts the clues together to figure out a character is angry or in love, they feel smart. They feel involved. Stanton uses WALL-E as the ultimate case study for this.
WALL-E is such a bold movie. The first, 30 minutes or so, there's almost zero dialogue.
It's practically a silent film. No one is explaining the plot. No one says, I am a lonely robot cleaning up a devastated Earth because humanity left due to excessive weight.
Awful.
It would be terrible. Instead, we see him stacking trash. We see him collecting little trinkets, a Rubik's Cube, a spork. We see him watching that old clip from Hello, Dolly.
Yeah.
And just holding his own metal hands together.
Yeah, that scene is heartbreaking.
Precisely. It is pure visual storytelling. Stanton calls this the well-organized absence of information. It draws us in because humans are born problem solvers. We are compelled to deduce and deduct. That's how we survive in the real world. We're constantly reading clues to understand our environment. Is that person a threat? Is this food safe? When a story forces us to do that, it triggers that primal engagement system.
Stanton makes a really funny comparison in that talk about why we are so obsessed with infants and puppies.
Yeah, it's brilliant. It's not just that they're cute. Stanton argues it's because they cannot express their intentions verbally. A baby can't say, I am hungry, or I am existentially dreading my nap. A puppy can't explain why it's barking.
So we're forced to project our own interpretations onto them.
We have to fill in the blanks. Oh, he's looking at the ball. He must want to play. She's rubbing her eyes. She must be tired. That act of projection creates an intense emotional bond. It's magnetic. We are active participants in their emotional state. We are doing the 2 + 2 every single time we look at a dog.
That's wild. So show don't tell is essentially harnessing the puppy effect.
It is.
By not explicitly stating the intention or the emotion, you force the reader to lean in and project that emotion onto the character, and by doing so, bond with them.
That is the psychology of engagement, and the ultimate goal is immersion. You want to eliminate the middleman.
The middleman being the author.
Right. Janice Hardy, another great writing coach, has a really good rule of thumb for this. If it feels like the character's thinking it, you're usually okay. That's immersion.
Okay.
But if it sounds like the author butting in to explain things, that is telling. That's the author tapping you on the shoulder and completely breaking the spell.
It's the difference between being in the movie and standing next to the director while he tells about.
Or a comedian explaining why the joke is funny.
Right.
The second you explain it, the humor dies.
Right.
The second you explain the emotion, the empathy dies.
So we know it works. We know the cognitive mechanism behind it, the 2 + 2 theory. But where did this rule even come from? Because writing didn't always. If you read stuff from the 1700s or 1800s, there's a lot of telling. A lot of, dear reader, let me tell you about the moral virtue of our hero.
It's so true. This isn't some commandment from the writing god. It's a relatively modern stylistic invention. It really traces back to the transition between the 19th and 20th centuries.
The shift toward realism.
Correct. Before this period, literature was often very romantic. Narrators were omniscient and really chatty. They guided you by the hand. They moralized. They would stop the story to give you a lecture on society. But then you get the realists. Writers like Gustave Flaubert, they wanted to strip away all that artifice. They wanted to tell stories of ordinary people with complete, almost scientific honesty.
They wanted the author to vanish.
Flaubert was obsessed with what he called impersonalization. He wanted the story to feel like it was happening objectively, without his fingerprints all over it. But the guy who really codified this, the guy we can probably blame or thank for the phrase show don't tell, is Percy Lubbock.
Percy Lubbock, 1921, The Craft of Fiction.
That's the book. Lubbock was a critic, and he basically argued that the art of fiction doesn't truly begin until the novelist thinks of the story as something to be shown. He believed the story should tell itself.
It sounds like he was trying to make writing more like theater.
Or cinema, which was just emerging as a huge art form at that time. He wanted scenes to play out visually. And it's worth noting, this was actually controversial, even back then.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Virginia Woolf, who was a contemporary, had a huge beef with Lubbock.
Wow, I would have thought Woolf, with her stream of consciousness stuff, would be all about showing.
She was, but she hated the rigidity of it. She praised his focus on craft, but she criticized him for trying to turn art into a rigid, formal system. She felt he was putting fiction in a straitjacket. She basically said, look, writing is fluid. Sometimes we need to be inside the head, sometimes outside. Don't tell me there's only one way to write.
And yet, 100 years later, Lubbock basically won the war, at least in terms of writing advice.
He did.
Show don't tell is the default setting for every workshop from Iowa to a local library.
It is. And despite Woolf's very valid criticism, the technique persists because, as we discussed with the psychology, it works for the modern reader.
Yeah.
We've been trained by film and TV. We are visual creatures. We have less patience for a narrator rambling on about morality We want the scene.
Okay, so let's pivot. We understand the theory, we know the history, but let's get into the workshop. If I'm sitting down to write, or if I'm editing a draft, how do I actually do? Because it's harder than it sounds. It's easy to say, show it, but it's hard to
It is incredibly hard. It requires you to be observant in a way most people just aren't in daily life. We have a toolkit today, though. We're going to break down some really specific strategies. And the first one comes from Chuck Palahniuk.
Fight Club guy. His writing is just so visceral. Feel the punches.
You really do. And he has an essay on this that went viral a few years back. His advice is pretty extreme, but it's a fantastic training exercise. He proposes a total ban on thought verbs.
Thought verbs? Okay, define those for us.
Words like thinks, knows, wants, realizes, believes, remembers, he said. Stop using them entirely. Just cut them from your vocabulary.
Whoa, that sounds impossible. Like, Adam knew Gwen liked him. That seems like a perfectly normal sentence.
It is normal. But Palahniuk argues it's lazy. It's a shortcut. He calls this unpacking. He says you have to unpack that sentence. If you can't say Adam knew Gwen liked him, what do you say instead? How does he know? What's the evidence?
Okay, let's try to rewrite that live. Adam knew Gwen liked. If I can't use knew or like, I have to look at the evidence. What does Gwen do?
Right. Does she send him a text? Does she blush when he walks by? Does she leave him a note?
Maybe. Adam walked into the room, and Gwen looked up and smiled. That's a start.
It's a start. It's better. But smiled is still a little generic. Can we get more specific? A smile can mean anything. It can be polite. It can be nervous.
True.
Palahniuk gives this great example for this exact scenario. He writes, between classes, Gwen was always leaned on his locker when he'd go to open it. She'd roll her eyes and shove off with one foot, leaving a black heel mark on the painted metal. But she also left the smell of her perfume. The combination lock would still be warm from her body heat.
Wow. That is significantly better.
It's tangible, isn't it?
The lock still be warm from her body. That is such a specific, intimate detail. It tells you everything you need to know about the physical proximity, the tension, without ever using the word like or romance.
And notice the shift in age. In the first version, Adam knew Gwen liked him. We were just being told a fact about Adam's brain. It's closed off. It's an assertion.
Right.
In the second version, we're seeing Gwen's actions. We're smelling the perfume. We are feeling the heat. The reader is the one concluding, oh, she is totally into him.
It forces the reader to be the detective. It respects the reader's intelligence.
And Palahniuk has this great quote. He says, instead of a character wanting something, you must now describe the thing so that the reader wants.
That's a powerful shift. So don't tell me the protagonist is hungry.
Right. Describe the steam rising off the fresh bread, the crackle of the crust as you tear it, the smell of yeast and melted butter. Make me, the reader, salivate. If I'm hungry, I know the character's hungry. You don't need to tell me.
This leads perfectly into the second principle in our toolkit, concrete versus abstract.
This is where writers, especially new writers, get tripped up constantly. We rely on abstract labels, words like happy, eerie, beautiful, cold, scary.
But those seem descriptive, though. If I say, it was a cold day, I'm describing the...
You're labeling the weather. You aren't describing the experience of the weather. There's a test for this, proposed by Jeff Kirk, called the camera test.
The camera test. I like tests. How does it work?
It's simple. Ask yourself, can a movie camera record this word? If I wrote, Toby felt happier than he'd ever felt, can a camera see felt happy?
No. A camera can't see a feeling inside someone's brain. It can only see what the person does or what their face looks like.
Exactly. So a writer named Harvey Chapman gives this great before and after. Instead of, Toby felt happier, show us the evidence. Toby couldn't keep a goofy grin off his face. When he came to the front gate, he jumped clean over it without tripping.
The camera can see the grin. The camera can see him jumping the gate.
And that action jumping the gate conveys the energy and the lightness of happiness better than the word happiness ever could. It implies a kind of physical buoyancy. It shows us that his body is reacting to his mood.
Let's apply this to cold, because it was cold is probably one of the most common sentences in existence. How do we pass the camera test with cold?
Jerry Jenkins gives some great advice here. Focus on the effect, not the cause. Don't tell me the temperature is low, the cause. Show me the effect on the character and the environment.
So not the air was frigid, that's a measurement.
Right, that's a number. Try this. He turned his face away from the biting wind, or he shoved his hands deep into his pockets, leaves crunched underfoot, his nose burned in the air.
Nose burned, I can feel that. That implies the cold in leaves crunched suggests the ground is frozen solid.
It engages your sensory memory. When I say nose burned, your brain retrieves the memory of a cold day. When I say it was cold, your brain just processes the data. Which brings us right to our third principle, sensory specificity.
Right, because we tend to rely so much on sight. He saw this, she looked at that. but showing is multisensory.
Ideally, yeah. If you only use sight, the writing feels distant. It feels like watching a TV show. But if you add smell and touch, it becomes 3D. Delilah Dawson talks about her revision process for this. She starts with a draft that might say something simple, like, Aga gaped at the rugs and spices.
Which is visual but vague. Spices could be anything. Rugs could be anything. Generic.
Totally generic. In her second draft, she dials up the specificity and adds other sense. She writes, spicy cinnamon and rich coffee rode the air. She ran her fingers down silken tassels and through powdery barrels of golden saffron.
Powdery barrels, silken tassels, cinnamon and coffee. Okay, now I'm there. I'm not just seeing a generic market. I'm smelling it and touching it. Spicy cinnamon hits the nose. Silken tassels hits the fingertips.
And that specificity creates immersion. The more specific the detail, the more universal the feeling often becomes. But there is a trap here. You have to avoid cliches.
Oh, the cliches. It was dark and stormy.
Or the classic funeral scene. Everyone is wearing black and it starts to rain.
It always rains at funerals and movies. It's shorthand for sadness. It's that thing, pathetic fallacy, where the weather matches.
It is, but it's lazy shorthand. It's a cliche. If you use a cliche, the reader's brain goes on autopilot. You lose the 2+2 effect because they've seen the equation a million times. Gail Carson Levine has this brilliant advice. Change the setting to force yourself to be unique.
So if you have a funeral, don't make it.
Make it a sunny Christmas day in Texas.
That's uncomfortable.
It is. Gone drizzle. Hello, dry air. Now, you can't rely on the rain to do the sad work for you. You have to find new details to show the grief. Maybe the contrast between the cheerful Christmas decorations and the open grave makes the grief feel sharper.
The irony makes it hurt more.
Exact. It forces the writer to be innovative. Instead of tears mixing with raindrops, maybe you focus on the sweat trickling down the back of the widow's black dress because the sun is too hot.
Yeah.
That's visceral. That's showing. That's something I haven't seen 1,000 times before.
That is such a good challenge. If you find yourself writing a cliche scene, flip the setting. Just see what happens.
Break the autopilot.
Okay, we're going to move into segment 4 now. We've talked about strategies, but now I want to do some advanced diagnosis. Because even when people try to show, they often fall into these specific traps. And the biggest one, I think, is the body language trap.
Oh, yeah. This is where show, don't tell goes wrong. This is the bad acting of writing.
This is where characters spend the entire book clenching their fists, gritting their teeth, and letting out breaths.
The release to breaths she didn't know she was holding is the ultimate cliche of modern young adult fiction. But the problem is, it's melodramatic. In real life, do you constantly clench your fists when you're annoyed?
Rarely. I mean, maybe if I'm in a box, but in a meeting. If I clenched my fists every time I was annoyed in a Zoom call, I'd have
Exactly. It becomes a cartoonish shorthand. It's technically showing, because it's a physical action, but it's not honest showing. Robin Patchen gives a fascinating example of this regarding a mother and a sleeping baby.
Right. Let's look at the melodramatic version first.
So the setup is a mom waking up and realizing her baby has slept longer than usual. The melodramatic version goes, heart leaping, stomach rolling, immediate panic. It's all these huge, visceral, physical reactions.
It's cranked to an 11 immediately. It's 0 to 60 in 1 second.
And it feels cheap, feels like a soap opera. Patchen suggests a much more nuanced version that focuses on the thought process rather than the body.
Okay, walk us through that. How do you show panic without the pounding heart?
So in the nuanced version, Mary wakes up. She stretches, she feels refreshed, then she looks at the clock. It's 8 a.m. She realizes the baby slept through the night, and her first thought isn't panic, it's, oh wow, finally.
Right, relief. That's the honest first reaction. I finally got...
But then the memory creeps. She remembers her previous child, Billy, who died, and she tries to convince herself it's different this time. The doctor said the odds are astronomical.
Oh, that is so much more powerful. You're watching the dread slowly infect the relief. It's a process.
Exactly. We're seeing the thoughts collide. It had to be different. That internal struggle is a form of showing that is indignantly more effective than her stomach.
So the key insight here is thoughts lead to emotion, and emotion act. Sometimes showing the thought process, the denial, the bargaining is the best way to show them.
Yeah, don't just show the result, panic. Show the path the mind takes to get there.
Another area where people struggle is dialogue. How do you show through dialogue without using those dreaded adverbs? Said, she shouted loudly.
Adverbs are the enemy of showing. If you have to write, he said angrily, your dialogue probably isn't angry enough on its own.
The dialogue itself should carry the weight.
We have to look at Oscar Wilde for this, the importance of being earnest. There's a scene between Algernon and Jack. Jack wants to marry Algernon's cousin. Algernon objects.
And does Algernon shout, I disapprove? Does he flip a table?
No. He's very polite, very British. He says, I don't give my consent.
That is so...
It's devastating. The tone is formal, but the subtext is incredibly aggressive. The reader feels the conflict without the author needing to write, Algernon said casually, but with underlying hostility. The words do the work. The formality is the weapon.
There's also the issue of telegraphing, right? Where the author explains the joke immediately after making...
Yes, this drives me crazy. A character will say something sarcastic, like, oh, wonderful, another flat tire. And then the author adds, he said sarcastically.
We know. We got it. The context gave it away.
Trust your reader. If a character says something sarcastic, don't label. If a character changes the subject, we know they are deflecting. You don't need to add, he tried to deflect the subject.
It goes back to the 2+2. If you explain the dialogue, you're giving us the 4 again. You're treating the reader like they're stupid.
And nothing kills engagement fast than making the reader feel
Now, this next point is one of my favorites because it changes how you see the entire world of a story. Narrative filtering, or POV.
This is the advanced class of show don't tell, because showing isn't objective. There is no such thing as an objective camera in fiction. It depends entirely on who is holding the camera.
Janice Hardy has this brilliant experiment called the rainy restaurant.
The scenario is so simple. A guy named Bob is sitting in a restaurant. It's raining. He has an envelope.
Okay, Bob, rain, envelope, simple variables.
Now, how do we show this? Depends entirely on who is watching. Let's say the POV character, the narrator, is a Navy SEAL.
Navy SEAL. Okay, so how does he see the rain?
He's trained to assess threat. So he might describe the rain beating like Uzi rounds against the glass. He's not slouching. He's sitting with his back to the wall. He's gripping the envelope. He's checking the exits. The clock ticking sounds like a countdown.
Right. His world is tactical. The rain is a projectile. The envelope is intel.
Now, switch the POV. Same scene, same Bob. But now the POV is a scared young girl who is running away from home.
Okay, so how does she...
The rain blurs the world. It isolates her. She's not checking exits. She's slouching, trying to make herself small. Her head is barely higher than the pancakes. She's dreading opening the envelope because it might contain bad news.
So the SEAL grips the envelope. The girl creates a distance from it.
Precisely. We are showing the character's personality, not by describing them. We aren't saying the SEAL was vigilant, but by describing how they perceive the world.
That is mind-blowing. The rain isn't just rain. The rain is character development.
That is the ultimate goal of filtering. Every description should pass through the lens of the character's mood, background, and fears. If a plumber walks into a room, he notices the pipe. If a musician walks in, she notices the acoustic.
This applies to world building too, doesn't it? We've all read those as you know Bob moments where characters explain things they already know.
As you know, Bob, we are heading to the land of giants to offer the jewel of Valencia, which was forged 1,000 years ago.
Yes, Steve, we discussed this last night. It's so awkward.
It's painful. It breaks the fourth wall. If you need to establish that a character knows how to make a bomb, don't have him recite the Wikipedia page on C4 to his partner.
How do you do it? Filter it?
Filter it through his immediate need. If he's a former Navy SEAL, maybe he just says, I'll rig the door. And when someone asks, where did you learn that? He doesn't give a speech. He just says, the Navy.
That's it. Short, punchy. It implies the backstory without a lecture.
It respects the character's reality. In real life, experts don't explain the basic to other experts.
Okay, we have bashed telling pretty hard for the last. Banned thought verbs, we've cut adverbs, we've demanded concrete evidence for everything. But is telling always bad?
No, and this is the crucial pivot. The rule should actually be show, don't just tell. Or maybe show most things, but tell some things.
We need a catchier slogan for that.
We do. But the defense of telling is important.
Yeah.
If you showed absolutely everything, every time a character brushed their teeth, drove to work, or walked down a hallway, your book would be 5,000 pages long and incredibly boring.
So telling is a pacing tool.
Ideally, yes. Telling is for transitions. It's for moving characters from point A to point B. It's for compressing time. 3 weeks passed. That is a sentence of pure telling, but it is necessary. You don't want to read about every single breakfast for 3 weeks unless something important happens at breakfast.
There is also a great example of using telling for character introductory garden.
Yes, Frances Hodgson Burnett. The opening paragraph literally says, Mary Lennox was the most disagreeable-looking child ever seen.
That is a judgment. That is pure telling. She is telling us Mary is ugly and mean.
It is. But notice what happens immediately after. She tells us Mary is disagreeable, and then she immediately provides the visual proof. Little thin face, little thin body, sour expression.
So the technique is tell the broad truth, then show the specific evidence to back it up.
Exactly. The tell acts as a topic sentence. It orients the reader. Hey, this girl's unlikable. Then the show convinces the reader. See? Look at her sour face. It's a 1-2 punch. Very effective for efficient story.
There's another defensive telling that I find really compelling, and it comes from author Alex E. Harrow. She talks about the storyteller voice.
This is a matter of style. Sometimes we want to be told, we want that feeling of sitting around a campfire while an old wise person spins a yarn.
The once upon a time vibe.
Harrow calls it the patronizing clarity of a fairy tale. We want a strong narrator to grab us by the collar and say, listen, here's how the world works.
She mentions The Space Between Worlds by Micaiah Johnson. Great.
Oh, that opening is electric. It's first person, and it's heavy on exposition. It says, we had to touch and taste and take. The universe said no.
Universe said no. That's a great line.
That is pure telling. It's abstract. It's summarizing a complex cosmological event. But it is searing. It has attitude. It has voice.
So if your telling has a strong enough voice, if it's entertaining or poetic or aggressive, you can get away with it.
Absolutely. The rule of show, don't tell is really about avoiding boring telling. If your telling is riveting, tell away. If your summary is as good as the dramatization, use it.
That's a relief. I feel like we've given the listeners permission to break the rules as long as they do it with style.
Learn the rules so you know how to break them properly. That's the secret. If you can show effectively, your telling becomes a choice, not a crutch.
I want to bring this full circle. We started with that terrible ruined paragraph from Where the Crawdad, the one about the girl feeling safe and the ground being her guard.
The summary version, the receipt.
Right. Now, I want to read the real version, the version Delia Owens actually wrote. And I want us to listen for everything we've talked about. The sensory details, the concrete evidence, the lack of thought verbs, the 2+2.
Let's hear it.
Quote, sometimes she heard night sounds she didn't know or jumped from lightning too close. But whenever she stumbled, it was the land who caught her. Until at last, at some unclaimed moment, the heart pains seeped away like water into still there. But Kia laid her hand upon the breathing, wet in the marsh.
Exhales. Yeah. That's the stuff.
Heart pain seeped away like water.
That's a concrete image for an abstract emotion. It gives physical properties to grief. It's not just she stopped being sad. The sadness is a liquid that is draining away.
The breathing wet.
Sensory specificity. Touch, sound, life. You can feel the moisture. You can feel the pulse of the ground. It's alive.
And the marsh became her mother. It doesn't say she felt safe. It uses a metaphor that defines her entire relationship with the setting.
It's the difference between reading a weather report and standing in the storm. That passage forces you to feel the dampness and the relief. It gives you the 2+2, and the 4 you arrive at is she is home.
It really highlights that showing isn't just a technical skill, it's an empathy.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's about specificity and empathy. It's about trusting your reader enough to let them co-create the experience.
So here's our challenge to you, the listener. We want you to be a little destructive today.
Yes. Take a favorite book off your shelf. Find a paragraph that you love one that really makes you feel something and try to ruin it.
Rewrite it using only text. Strip out all the sensory details. Replace the actions with thought verbs. Turn heart pains seeped away like water into sand into she didn't feel sad anymore.
It's a painful exercise, but it will show you exactly how much work those specific details are doing. It reveals the machinery under the hood of great writing.
And then once you've ruined a masterpiece, go write something of your own and look for the well-organized absence of information.
Look for the 2+2. Make the reader do the math.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening and keep writing.
Keep writing.